Hello there. Welcome in to a Friday edition of the show. So glad to have you. Whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the new and improved Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and Well-Being for All. It's good to be back. One day away. Veritable cornucopia of sports topics over the course of the program, and I would like your thoughts on all of them. 719-247-1313 is both the text and phone line for your convenience. Dave Toller will check in from Vegas as Air Force hockey is in the Icebreaker tournament this weekend. You can hear both games of that right here on Extra Sports 1300. They'll take on Minnesota first, and that will be at 8:30 this evening. And I actually want to start with hockey. I was out yesterday, so my first opportunity to chat with you a little bit about what you saw from the Avalanche in their season opener. And remember the other day, it was on Wednesday, I believe. Remember when I said that I longed for the days when the biggest question mark with the Colorado Avalanche was whether their goaltender was just good enough to not screw it up? Right? Avs for so long were a ready-made Stanley Cup winning team, and the question was Darcy Kemper, Philip Grubauer, Alexander Georgiev. Are they just good enough? But now there's all this other stuff with Valeri Nichushkin and Gabriel Landeskog and Arturi Lehkonen and everything else. So there's a lot of other stuff going on with the Avs, but lo and behold, one game in, guess what we're talking about? Yes. Alexander Georgiev made an appearance in Vegas the other night. The expected goals are not handed down from on high, but if you're into that kind of thing, the expected goals against for the Colorado Avalanche in their opener was just over 2. They gave up many more than that. And Jared Bednar with an all too familiar refrain.
The number of scoring chances we gave up was not an issue. Like, we did some good things throughout the course of the game. Every time we got ourselves back in the game, we made another mistake, and every mistake we made tonight ended up in the back of our net. Literally almost every one.
Every mistake we made ended up in the back of the net. It is the same thing that we heard over and over and over again last year. Same conversation. The Avs aren't defending at the level they need to. They weren't on Wednesday night, certainly. Right? McKinnon just on one sequence just flat out stopped skating. Right? And that's a reigning MVP. That's unacceptable. We know this already. We have been so well versed and well trained in the impact a goaltender has versus how much blame goes to the guys in front of him. We understand it's a unit. It's defending as a team. Yes, the Avs did not perform defensively at the level they needed to in order to beat the Vegas Golden Knights. But and so many other teams have this luxury. They have goaltenders that can make at least a couple of those saves. A couple Two completely changes that game. 2 saves from Alexander Georgiev. I get it. They didn't put him in the best position. It's part of a goaltender's job to, yes, bail out his team. If only once every great while. And Alexander Georgiev did not do that once. Regular season, Alexander Georgiev does not do that. The Avs during the regular season get punished for every mistake that they make. Playoff Georgiev, he makes saves. It is one of the more puzzling things right now in Colorado sports. It really is. How Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde Alexander Georgiev can be. And it's as simple as regular season playoffs. And I thought perhaps some of playoff Georgiev would trickle down to the regular season. Not Wednesday. And I actually think that the conversation needs to be tweaked slightly when it comes to the level of goaltending the Avalanche need. Right? It's not the same conversation as it was when they had Darcy Kemper. Because when they had Darcy Kemper, it was just don't let in garbage goals. And you don't have, Darcy Kemper doesn't have to save anybody. Just don't let in cheap ones. And everything will be fine. That was the standard. Why was that the standard? Because the Avalanche had Nazem Kadri. Because they had Valeri Nichushkin. Because they had savvy veterans in the bottom 6 like Andrew Cogliano, like Darren Helm. They had Eric and Jack Johnson on the blue line. This is a different team. This is a younger team. Perhaps more skilled. Perhaps the upside is greater. But what's the thing that's going to take time for some of these younger players to develop? The defensive part of their game. So I don't know that whatever standard you held Darcy Kemper to a few years ago, you can hold Georgiev to. I think they need more out of Alexander Georgiev. They needed more in the playoffs last year. And to Alexander Georgiev's credit, he bailed them out. He was vastly superior to the best goaltender in the league, Connor Hellebuck. Vastly superior in that first round series. He was good against Dallas with Jake Ottinger on the other side. We've seen this. We've seen the Avalanche get a higher level of goaltending that I think they require. It doesn't have to be Patrick Waugh level, but I do think it's got to be better than Darcy Kemper. So that's the standard that Georgiev has to be held to. The problem is far too often last year, and on opening night, he wasn't even close. I mean, not even close to what he needs to be. And they don't even have Pavel Francouz behind him. Right? That was the other part of the Avs goaltending situation a couple years ago. They had a more capable backup. We don't know what Justus Onanen is. And he's thrust into duty in that third period, and guess what? Wasn't any better. Chris McFarland, before the season started, the Avalanche general manager, talked about needing to be able to have Georgiev in net less early on in the season. What happened last year with all the uncertainty and all the volatility in the goaltending room, they had to lean on Georgiev night in and night out for days, weeks, up to a month straight. And the hope was they don't have to do that this time with Alexander Georgiev. Are we sure about that? And by the way, I think it's the right plan. I do think some of Georgiev's struggles last year were due to the fact that every single night he was there. Never got a break. Good, bad, or ugly, he was out there the very next night because they had no choice. So this is a good idea, in theory, from Chris McFarland, not playing Georgiev as much. And as somebody who has about had it with the goaltender wins conversation, I'm so tired of that. Like, goaltender wins mean anything when a guy is, what was he last year? 24th in goals allowed average and 28th in save percentage. You can take your goaltender wins and stuff them in a sack. I don't want to hear it. Wins are a team stat. Avs are good. It doesn't mean their goaltending's good. And it wasn't last year. But can you rely on Justus Annunen? How confident are you in him? Clearly, even the organization is not that confident because today Chris McFarland went out and claimed Kaapo Kähkönen on waivers from the Winnipeg Jets. Brought in another goaltender. If that's not a signal, I don't know what is. A message, a signal, it's something. It's not a coincidence. They didn't just go, that might be a guy we'd like. No. That's not what Kaapo Kähkönen is. But can't get carried away here. Okay, Kaapo Kähkönen is not somehow the answer. Right? He's not. The guy gave up 3.5 goals a game last year. Oddly enough, his save percentage was actually better than Georgiev playing for the Sharks most of last year, who are outright tanking. So I kind of look at it two ways. One is that on the Avalanche, you can expect Kähkönen, I think, to be better than he was playing with the Sharks. Right? I think that's fair. But you also can't look at him and like, oh, new number one goalie? Nope, that's still Georgiev. And that's the whole thing about this. The only way they're going to get to where they want to go, the only way they're going to have success is with Georgiev and net. It's not with Annunen, and it's not with Kaapo Kähkönen. It's got to be Georgiev. But maybe, just maybe, because you can't, I don't know what happened to Alexander Georgiev between the end of the regular season and the beginning of the postseason, but the dude just locked in. And it was spectacular to watch. He was awesome. And then he unlocked whatever the opposite of locked in is. He did that over the summer, and then the byproduct is what you got on Wednesday. Now, you can't go to the guy and say, hey, playoffs start now, because he's going to know. Right? It's common knowledge that the playoffs are not for a long time. But maybe he needs the stakes to be raised. Maybe that's the key to Alexander Georgiev. The stakes have to go up. Being the unquestioned number one starter, night in and night out for an 82-game season without any real challenge clearly does not get the best out of this guy. Season on the line in the postseason brings out the best of him. Perhaps his own job insecurity will bring that out of him. But night one, right back to what Alexander Georgiev was last year. It was, if it wasn't so frustrating for an Avalanche fan to watch that, it would be quite remarkable that someone could go, think about it, game 82 last year to the playoffs, back to game one of this season. Just that switch on off. It would be remarkable if it wasn't so frustrating. So another goaltender in the room. We'll see what that does. Tomorrow night, Avs with their home opener against Columbus, a team that is not, suffice to say, is not as good as Vegas. So we'll see where that gets. Colorado tomorrow night. In the meantime, I'll take your thoughts on it. 719-247-1313. There was good from the Avs season opener in the form of number 96, and I'll talk about him coming up in a little bit. Coming up next, the other big news item I missed yesterday while I was out, Nathaniel Hackett. I have thoughts. I'm sure you do as well. Let's share them with each other next on Extra Sports 1300. It all comes down to this. Your Colorado Springs Switchbacks taking on San Antonio with everything on the line for home field advantage in the playoffs. Tomorrow night, it's fan appreciation night, so wear your Switchbacks colors. I believe black is the preferred color of the Switchbacks tomorrow night. If I saw correctly, they want people to wear black if you would like to oblige. But definitely, no matter what color clothes you're wearing, be there at 5 to get an exclusive fan paddle from Creative Consortium. Then after the match, experience a special season finale fireworks show. It all goes down tomorrow night, 5 p.m. at Widener Field. Limited tickets, and I mean limited. Just talking to Daniel at the Switchbacks ticket office earlier today when I was out at training. The supply is dwindling. So get your tickets now, switchbacksfc.com. So being out yesterday and having no show, the two big things that I would have gotten into were the Avalanche season opener and this little nugget out of New York. You know, they say in life it's not what you know, it's who you know. I don't know who said that, but it is a popular saying or some form of it, right? You've heard it before. And that may be true to a great extent, right? Connections matter, who you know matters. But at some point, what you know has to matter. How good you are at what you do matters. So maybe you could get your foot in the door, you could get a job because of who you know, but eventually you will be exposed as a fraud if you don't know what is required from whatever position you may hold. For the second time in 3 years, Nathaniel Hackett has been stripped of play calling duties. Okay, it's a big deal. It did not translate to success with Denver a couple of years ago, right? Broncos still lost 5 of their next 6 before the Christmas debacle in LA. Hackett got fired. And I don't know that it's going to work for New York. Todd Downing is going to take over the play calling duties while Nathaniel Hackett remains the offensive coordinator. And before I get into Downing and his resume, I am genuinely curious. This is not an anti-Nathaniel Hackett take. I am genuinely curious when an offensive coordinator is no longer calling plays or isn't calling plays, what is it that they do? Like, maybe I should know that. Maybe my lack of knowledge is getting exposed, but I'm always curious what an offensive coordinator, and it's not like the head coach is now the play caller. Right? Like, I feel like if your head coach is like take Denver, for instance. So Joe Lombardi is the offensive coordinator, but we know that Sean Payton is the play caller. But because Sean Payton has so much other stuff on his plate, being the head coach, you can imagine that while Joe Lombardi doesn't call plays, there's still a lot of duties that Sean Payton delegates to Lombardi. Still not 1,000% sure what they are, but I'm sure there are some. Nathaniel Hackett is the offensive coordinator up until yesterday, the play caller, and now he is having to relinquish that to a subordinate. And it's not like in Denver where he still has all of this head coaching stuff he has to do. So I'm genuinely curious. I'm not trying to sound like a scene from Office Space here, but I'm genuinely curious what it is that Nathaniel Hackett will do on a day-to-day basis. He is essentially offensive coordinator in name only in title and nothing else. So the Jets fire Saleh, promote Jeff Ulbrich, who is not calling the defense, mind you, which was the thing that was actually working for the Jets through the first few weeks of the season. And now they demote Hackett or strip him of play calling duties for Todd Downing. Now, Todd Downing was last seen in Tennessee coordinating what I'm sure you remember was one of the most feared offenses in all the National Football League with the Tennessee Titans. That team is the reason why he was unemployed, why Ryan Tannehill still is unemployed. They were 30th in defense, 28th in points scored. Malik Willis looked like he never played football in his life when he was playing in Todd Downing's offense. He goes to Green Bay, and Matt LaFleur gets 2 wins out of him. That's the guy that's taking over for Hackett. At this point, they're just doing things just to do things. There's no rhyme. There's no reason except for protect anybody Aaron Rodgers likes at all costs. That's it. That's the only edict. Everything else is just like, whatever. And this is not me sticking up for Nathaniel Hackett by any stretch of the imagination. He's messy. That's the word I would use with Nathaniel Hackett, dating back to his time in Denver. He's messy. Things don't work right. Right? The communication isn't right, or the blocking scheme isn't right, or it's messy. That's the word I keep coming back to. And he was that way in Denver, and he seems to be that way with the Jets. Sean Payton was right, and that was never in question. My problem with Sean Payton saying what he said was not that he was lying about Nathaniel Hackett. My two things were, one, you probably don't say that out loud to a reporter. And two, he should have looped in Russell Wilson with that, because Russell Wilson was part of the problem. But what he said about Nathaniel Hackett, it wasn't a lie to begin with. Nathaniel Hackett had MVP Aaron Rodgers that got him the Denver job. Okay, may have been underqualified. Broncos thought they could get Aaron Rodgers if they brought in Nathaniel Hackett. That's why they hired him. And any accomplishment that they looked at was due to back-to-back MVP seasons from Aaron Rodgers. So he goes to Denver without MVP Aaron Rodgers and with washed Russell Wilson, and it's a disaster. Now he goes to New York with certainly not MVP Aaron Rodgers, not so far. Am I going to say washed Aaron Rodgers? No, I'm going to say washed. Like it's a game of horse and you have HORS. Like it's WASHE, Aaron Rodgers. Not there yet, but we're getting there. And he can't do anything. He can't weave any magic. He can't scheme his way out of this. Without MVP caliber Aaron Rodgers, this guy for the last few years has been absolutely abysmal. He gets gigs because of who he knows, but he has been so greatly exposed without the protection of Aaron Rodgers playing at an MVP caliber level. So good luck, Todd Downing. It's an unstable organization that is becoming more unstable by the minute. And the Broncos used to be this, right? What's the way that you change it? Sweeping major changes in leadership. And you could say the Jets are doing that. Woody Johnson's still the owner, yes. Their general manager is still in place, yes. They are now relying on someone who has never been a head coach in the NFL, yes. You expect stability to rise out of this because the Broncos had to replace their owner, new owner, and a head coach with decades of experience and over a decade of experience being a head coach. That's how they became more stable. And you see it with this Broncos franchise. It seems stable. How good or bad they are as a football team is a different story. They seem stable. Like what they're doing is going to continue. They're going to build off of it. Broncos weren't that different from the Jets just a couple years ago. But they got new leadership in the right spots. And now it seems like this organization is on solid footing. And the Jets just feel chaotic. To say nothing of the fact of the power that they have given Aaron Rodgers and what that says about how well run this organization is. We'll see if it works. It'll be fascinating. I'll be tuning in. I wish I had anyone in my life that protected me the way Aaron Rodgers protects Nathaniel Hackett. Like, honestly, I don't know if my parents were as supportive of me growing up as Aaron Rodgers is supportive of Nathaniel Hackett. Like, I don't know what that relationship is, but I've never had a relationship like that in my life. And am I jealous? You bet I'm jealous. I've never seen anything like this. Hackett should have been fired on Monday. We should have been talking about Nathaniel Hackett fired. And now we're sitting here on Friday, and not only is he not fired, he's not even losing his title. Seven 719-24-7-13-13. Coming up next, between Nathaniel Hackett and the performance of the Avalanche on Wednesday, I need a little bit of a palate cleanser here. How about this? The 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live is this week. What are some of the greatest sports skits in that show's history? I have my list. I'd like to hear yours next on Extra Sports 1300. Join me next Thursday, or this Thursday, I suppose, since today is Friday. I'll be doing the show live from Trainwreck, 812 South Sierra Madre Street, leading you up to Denver and New Orleans. You can win Air Force CSU tickets, as well as tickets to every remaining Air Force home game this season. So come out, join me, Trainwreck, 812 South Sierra Madre, this Thursday, October 17th. Be doing the show 3 to 6. And then, of course, at that time, it will be Denver versus New Orleans. So, Saturday Night Live is celebrating its 50th anniversary this week. And it got me thinking of my favorite sports-related skits. Now, as you know, these top 5 lists, stuff like that, that is normal sports radio fodder. I'm not great at them. I make a lot of exceptions. I bend the rules, and I have to do that right away. Because before I get into this list, I will tell you that nothing beats Bill Swirsky superfans. Nothing. The reason I omit them from this top 5 list I'm about to present to you is because I can't pick one. I can't pick one standalone skit where I say this is the number one. I could just make it the top 5 Bill Swirsky superfan. Maybe I should have, but I wanted to include more. Reach a different audience with a few of these. But that stands alone as the best sports thing Saturday Night Live has ever done. From Chris Farley having heart attacks and choking on racks of ribs, to when they put a hula skirt on Michael Jordan, when George Wendt asked the question about who would win between a hurricane and Mike Ditka, and then he said, "What if the hurricane is named Hurricane Ditka?" Like, everything about Bill Swirsky's superfan is the best. So that stands alone. That cannot be touched. I omitted it from my list, but I wanted to get that caveat out there right away, just in case you start listening to this list and you're like, my goodness, where's Bill Swirsky superfans? Don't worry. It's the best. It stands alone. But there's so many of them, right? It was a recurring thing. These are more standalone, or at least limited sketches. So, with that being said, my 5 favorite SNL sports skits of all time. We start at number 5. Jesus visits Tim Tebow and the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest acting from the ensemble that's there, but Jason Sudeikis carries that segment or that skit and is just so funny. And Taron Killam is playing Tim Tebow, and just how like fanboy he is about the whole thing. Like, you heard that little clip in there. Obviously, because we were living in Tebow mania, that skit is elevated because it was spot on. It married the insanity, the absurdity of Tebow mania with the other conversation regarding Tim Tebow, given his religion and how outward he was with that. Just from a timely standpoint, one of those that you kind of got to cobble together based on the news cycle. That was a great one. So that one's at number 5. At number 4, it's called The Sports Reporter, but his name is Laszlo Holmes, played by Chance the Rapper. Let's Do That Hockey, forever immortalized as a go-to line for every fan, every broadcaster. Even some players like to use the Let's Do That Hockey. Chance the Rapper, as a fill-in sideline guy, ringside, whatever you want to call him, MSG brings him over from the Knicks broadcast to fill in on the Rangers, and the fish out of water, like, I don't understand any of this. And it just hit every single thing that if you're a hockey fan, every single thing you ever hear from anybody about why they don't watch hockey. Don't understand what's going on. It's cold. I can't pronounce any of the names. All of this stuff, he hit on it. And it was just brilliant. And it just continues to live on through that last line. Let's do that hockey. So now in hockey, we say, let's do that hockey. So the sports reporter, Laszlo Holmes, number 4 on my list. At number 3 on my list, it is Sports Center, starring Ray Romano. That at a time that all of us of my age group wanted to be Sports Center anchors. We'd hear Stuart Scott with Booyah and all of Dan Patrick's iconic lines, and even Keith Olbermann and Craig Kilborn and all these Sports Center anchors that came through, and they had those catchphrases, and we all wanted to make up our own, and we never could. And Ray Romano played that perfectly. He goes on for the entire sketch with the most nonsensical things, except for Sweet Sassy Molassie, and he just kept going back to it over and over and over again. And it was so good. And it just tapped into any of us who wanted to grow up to be a Sports Center anchor, and how we were workshopping our own lines with our buddies, and probably sounded a lot like Ray Romano did on that one. And I even love the delayed reaction from the audience. Like, they didn't quite understand what he was doing right after he said it. They're like, that's not funny. And then you can almost feel that pause, and they're like, oh, and then they got in on the joke, and then they laughed hysterically the rest of the time. So Sports Center would be number 3. At number 2, DJ Michael, sometimes producer of the show, caught me crying in my office earlier today because I was watching this skit. May I present to you Space, the Infinite Frontier with Dr. Kent Waller. Will Ferrell will never not be funny as Harry Carey. It is an exaggerated impression of the late Cubs broadcaster, but it was almost accepted that that's just what Harry Carey was. And I think a lot of people who tuned into WGN after, or looked at old clips was like, oh, he's not that. Well, yeah, no duh. It's an exaggerated impression of him. But Will Ferrell, just that entire skit, again, still had me in tears earlier this afternoon. Guess that's why I'm so curious, and they call me Whiskers. See, I can't even do it justice. But Will Ferrell would reprise his role as Harry Carey, but that one was the best. Asking him what his favorite planet was, saying his is the sun. It was amazing. And one of Will Ferrell's best characters that he played on Saturday Night Live. And then Jeff Goldblum as the straight man. Like, could you get a better person to play like an astronomer? And a straight man to the absurdity of Will Ferrell as Harry Carey. So that was the second one. Would you eat the moon if it were me? Just say yes so we can move on. All right. So probably by process of elimination, you could guess what the number one standalone SNL sports sketch is. United Way. Why is the door open? Close the door. The shock that I experienced, because obviously it's SNL, so it's going to be funny with Peyton Manning, but you don't know that that's what it's going to be. And when he's dropping back and he just starts like angrily muttering to himself, "Open, get open," and then he just releases, cut to him hitting a kid in the back of the head, and then just continued with it. That I may laugh still the most with the Harry Carey one, but the biggest laugh that I could put that skit up against any SNL skit I've ever seen. And when I first saw it, I don't think I've ever laughed harder at his skit the first time I saw it than Peyton Manning in that United Way SNL digital short. So there you go. Jesus visiting Tim Tebow and the Broncos. Laszlo Holmes, sports reporter. Ray Romano, sweet sassy molassie on Sports Center. Harry Carey hosting Space the Infinite Frontier. And Peyton Manning's United Way commercial with, obviously, the special acknowledgement of Bill Swirsky's super fans being untouchable and impossible to pick just one to include on this list. Take your thoughts between Alexander Georgiev and Nathaniel Hackett. I thought we needed a little bit of a palate cleanser. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, the Broncos. We are about to find out how they deal with something that, quite honestly, they have not had to deal with in years. Welcome in, hour 2 on a Friday. Drive Time Sports. Ryan Kaufman is I am with you, talking to you, and I appreciate the ability to do so, the honor of doing just that. 719-247-1313 is the number if you would like to interact with the show. We'll get back into the SNL sports sketch list that I just put out in a little bit if you missed it. And would love to get your thoughts on that. And a reminder that you can watch this show on a daily basis as long as you follow us on social media somewhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the handle, all the same, at XTRA Sports 1300. Sunday, the Denver Broncos are going to be taking on the Los Angeles Chargers and trying to up their unbeaten streak to 4 games. And this week started with the conversation about this feeling different for the Broncos. Coming off of that win against the Raiders, it feels different around this franchise. Whether it's the defense, whether it's stability, whether it's Bo Nix, whether it's beating the Raiders, whether it's wearing the throwbacks. And I honestly think maybe all of it is involved here, but it's just a different feeling. And the question is whether the Broncos feel it and whether they believe that they are moving towards something special. Sean Payton was asked about that, just that.
Confidence, I've said this before, is born out of demonstrated ability. You got to do it, and then, man, there's nothing like it, and then you can feed on it, and we've all seen that. So, look, hopefully we're bringing in the right type of players that have that intellect, that confidence, and yet, look, there's a fine line between a groove and a rut, and we can't ever forget that.
Right there at the end is what I want to focus on. Right there at the end. Because the Broncos are being talked about in a way I don't remember them being talked about for a while. They're being praised, right? The defense is being praised for being maybe the best in the NFL. Patrick Surtain being talked about for Defensive Player of the Year. People liking what they see from Bo Nix and saying, outside of Jaden Daniels, is this the best rookie quarterback? Sean Payton's doing it again. What he did in New Orleans. All of this stuff is coming back up. Playoffs are being discussed. Whether this team has what it takes to make the postseason. This is not normal, or at least what has become normal over the past, basically going on a decade. And outside of how they slow down the Chargers' run game or get to Justin Herbert and the pass rush, and even whether Bo Nix is able to throw the ball downfield, can the Broncos keep running? Outside of all that football stuff, my biggest question for Sunday when it pertains to the Denver Broncos is, how are they going to handle prosperity? Now, I get it. It's not ultimate prosperity. They haven't won anything yet. But they have to feel how different this is. They have to see what's being said about them. And to Sean Payton's point, they should be feeling confident about what they've done. This is not to detract from the way they've performed the last few weeks, and they should be confident. But what Sean Payton brought up right at the end, and it was intentional that he peppered it in there, but I'm glad he said it, because it's what I've been mulling about this Broncos team most of this week. How are they going to handle this? You know, as good as the Chargers are, a lot of people expect the Broncos to win. Why wouldn't they win? The way the defenses play, the way that Bo Nix threw it at the end of that Raider game, they should win. This is a home game. Like, all that kind of stuff is coming back into the conversation. And I wonder how this team is going to respond. This team has been written off. They've been the plucky underdogs. They've been the nice story. They've been all of these things that aren't the compliments that they sound like. But now the compliments that are going to the Denver Broncos are legitimate. And how they deal with that is going to be very interesting. I said this a couple of days ago. I'll reiterate it here if you did not catch the show on Wednesday. These Broncos feel like the Buccaneers a few weeks ago when the Broncos went into Tampa. That's what it feels like. And you saw what happened to the Bucs. They got punched in the mouth by the Denver Broncos. And they never recovered. The Broncos just kept on and on and beat the Buccaneers soundly. There is a legitimate chance the Chargers come in and do the exact same thing to the Denver Broncos. Especially if that message Sean Payton peppered in at the end of that clip doesn't sink in. And he could say it all he wants. I'm sure Sean Payton has addressed it many times. Are the players hearing it? Are they internalizing it? Because we could talk about how this franchise has been down in the dumps for years, and we can even look at players like Cortland Sutton and say he's been through this. He's got to be able to appreciate what's going on and understand what Sean Payton was saying there. Yeah, but how about Bo Nix? How about Jonathan Cooper? How about Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin? How about Riley Moss? Do they have an extensive knowledge of how difficult it's been in Denver? No, it's just all anecdotal. They've heard about it. They haven't experienced it. Are those guys, the younger guys, feeling themselves a little bit? Because I think that, as much as anything, that's what bit Tampa Bay a few weeks ago when Denver played them. I think they were really feeling themselves. Now, easier to not overlook a division opponent. You can add that message on top of it. But I still think that there's a chance that Harbaugh and company come into Denver and serve as a reality check, in a way, to this Denver Broncos team if they're not ready. The other curiosity I have for Sunday's game is, what will Bo Nix be allowed to do? what will this offense, will the offense add anything else, or will it be status quo? Because for the last couple of weeks, it's been a very well-defined Broncos offense and a well-defined role within that offense for Bo Nix. And it's not being asked to do a lot. Here's Sean Payton on the growth of Bo.
We're running the ball better. We're playing better team football. I keep talking about all of us, coaches, of providing the perfect pictures and continuing to do that. And he's getting experience. You see it, and it's happening.
Yeah, it is. It's happening. Let him loose. I'm not saying be reckless with the game plan. This is a dangerous team. These are two teams that want to win on the margins. That's both of these teams' game plan. Chargers are going to come in very much the same as the Denver Broncos. They're going to run the football, have their defense lead the way, and they would just as soon get out of Denver with a 10-9 victory. Broncos would like to do the same thing. Forget Sean Payton, offensive genius. If he won this game 10-9, he'd be elated. It's the margins. That's where Jim Harbaugh and Sean Payton try to win. And how do you win on those margins? You control the football by running it. You play good defense. And you don't let your quarterback sling it around. And even you're going to see Vance Joseph talked about it. These are not the same Chargers. If you haven't been paying attention, they're going to look a lot different with a lot of the same names on Sunday.
It's a different offense. It's not what we've seen from these guys in the last couple of years. It is run first, run second, and quick game and play action pass. So it's a different, unique, old school, I would say, offensive football team.
It may not be the most aesthetically pleasing football game on Sunday. And maybe there aren't a lot of moments for Bo Nix to be able to showcase his growth. But there will be moments. There will be moments in Sunday's game where you go, all right, this is where Bo Nix can make a play. With his arm, through the air, downfield. The entire game is not going to be devoid of those moments. There will be times when the game is in the balance, when there's consequence to Bo Nix's throws, where he could throw the ball downfield, where a downfield throw would be an acceptable play call. Is Sean Payton going to let him do it? Against a divisional opponent, against somebody that I think Sean Payton is very leery of in terms of how good of a coach Jim Harbaugh is. He's going to let the young quarterback have his opportunities, or is it going to be very much what we've seen? Either early throws that are scripted, or once the game's already decided, hey, go out, knock yourself out, Bo. Because that's what it's been the last couple weeks. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts and predictions for Sunday's game. Do the Broncos come back down to earth a little bit against the Chargers, or do they keep it rolling? 719-247-1313. Coming up next. Overall, not a great first impression by the 2024-25 Colorado Avalanche. But that's not to say there weren't bright spots. Just how many goals can Mikko Rantanen score this season? That's next on Extra Sports 1300. Tomorrow night, Switchbacks taking on rival San Antonio FC in the regular season home finale. It will be fan appreciation night. There will be paddles given out to the first fans through the gates at 5, and a season-ending fireworks spectacular, a regular season-ending fireworks spectacular, because, of course, Wednesday night, not the way they wanted to clinch a playoff spot, but the Switchbacks are in. But I say all that to say you want to be there. Tomorrow night at Widener Field, and I have a pair of tickets for you. Just be the 13th texter to text Switchbacks and your name to 719-247-1313. 13th texter will get a pair of tickets to tomorrow night's match between the Switchbacks and San Antonio FC. Really, there are two stories coming out of the Avs season opener. One is not a positive story, the goaltending, which I will get back to after the top of the hour. But the other is Mikko Rantanen. And generally, in sports, you have to be a little careful when you are deciding whether to sign a free agent, because many soon-to-be free agents will muster their best in order to maximize their value for their next contract. Now, with Mikko Rantanen, I think you pretty well know who he is, how valuable he is. And I would expect the Avalanche at some point to get him locked up to an extension. But that doesn't mean that the career year idea can't happen. It's just for Mikko Rantanen, a career year is on a different level than a lot of guys playing the last year of their contracts. He opens the season with 3 goals, widely referred to as a hat trick. Right out of the gate, game 1, 3 goals. So now you do the math and you say that Mikko Rantanen, if he scored 3 goals every game this year, would indeed win the Rocket Richard Trophy. I could say that without equivocation. If Mikko Rantanen has a hat trick every night, he's taking home that hardware. I don't think he'll have a hat trick every night. But the NHL released a video on their social media accounts the other day where players write down who they think will lead the league in goals and with how many. Nathan MacKinnon wrote down Mikko in 61. Now, of course, he would pick Mikko Rantanen. Right? And it was funny, not everybody actually picked one of their teammates. Most of them went to an obvious place, Austin Matthews. Some even thought that he would break 70 goals this year. But Nathan MacKinnon doesn't strike me as someone who would just say, hey, it's my teammate, I'm going to pick him. I don't think Nathan MacKinnon's that kind of a guy. I think there's something behind this. Now, Nathan MacKinnon is not a seer of futures. He doesn't know that much better than you or I do. But it just, when he put it up there, I was like, there's something to this. And maybe what it is Nathan MacKinnon knowing what Mikko Rantanen is putting into this season. and saying, this dude's ready for a special year. And I could see it. And you saw it on opening night. Mikko Rantanen looked like he was playing at a different level than the rest of the Colorado Avalanche and the rest of the Vegas Golden Knights, for that matter. Vegas got the win. Avs had the best player on the ice that night, and it wasn't 29. It was 96. Austin Matthews, I still think he's just going to go berserker. Like, this dude is unbelievable. And even with the talent he has around him, you know, not that he's hunting the goal, but he's going to score the goals. So I don't think Mikko Rantanen wins the Rocket Richard Trophy. But watch him make a run at it. Watch him and Austin Matthews be battling it out for the last few weeks of the season. And don't be shocked if he doesn't start approaching that number that Nathan MacKinnon put on the whiteboard. The guy has a career high 55 goals. Contract year. Could a few more be added to that? Nathan MacKinnon having reached MVP status, getting that accolade, I don't want to say out of the way, but kind of out of the way, right? Like, he finally has that in his trophy cabinet. And he wanted to win an MVP. Who grows up and doesn't want to win an MVP? Right? It's not the most important thing to Nathan MacKinnon, but he wants one. And now he's got it. I think Nathan MacKinnon is going to have a year similar, not as prolific, but a similar mindset as Connor McDavid had last year. I want to get everybody involved. And Nathan MacKinnon, we've seen that through long stretches, right? That he'll forego even shooting the puck to get other people involved. So it's in his game. It's in Connor McDavid's game. But it just seemed like such a emphasis from Connor McDavid last year to get other people involved. He almost single-handedly turned Zach Hyman into a Rocket Richard Trophy winner. I could see Nathan MacKinnon taking that kind of a mentality with Landeskog and Nichushkin out. I could see Nathan MacKinnon going, all right, my guy, Jonathan Drouin, now he's here. He's staying here. I don't have to. I'm just going to distribute the puck. I'm going to get everybody involved, especially Mikko Rantanen. I could see the signs here that Mikko Rantanen is set for a career year in terms of scoring goals. Will that be enough to topple Austin Matthews? I would say probably not, but just a couple of years ago, I didn't think that anyone would ever beat out Connor McDavid for the MVP. And guess who did? A Colorado Avalanche player. Even though his status with the Avs is not in question, he will re-sign. Chris McFarland will get this deal done. That's what he does. That's what he's best at, locking these guys up. And he will. A month from now, All-Star break, end of the season, end of the postseason, I don't know when. Mikko Rantanen is not going anywhere. But in the meantime, he's in a contract year. And the way he looked on Monday, my advice to Chris McFarland is just like, don't rush into anything, signing him up to an extension. Like, you got to figure out what's going on with Nichushkin, what's going on with Landeskog. Like, you got time. Don't rush this thing. Let Mikko, whatever is going on with Mikko Rantanen right now, let it continue, because he was superb on Wednesday night. And I think it's the start of maybe Mikko Rantanen's finest season in an Avs sweater. Take your thoughts on it. 719-24-7. 13-13. Tomorrow night, Avs taking on the Jackets. Should be better. Right? Should be a better result. Columbus, not very good. Don't know. We'll see. But Mikko Rantanen. Rantanen was ready. Georgiev not. And everyone else just kind of fell somewhere in between the two on the spectrum on Monday night or Wednesday night. 719-24-7, 13-13. Let's take a couple of your texts here, and let's get back to the so SNL is doing their 50th anniversary this week. I'm not familiar with who is hosting. I heard Tina Fey. I don't really watch this show anymore, although I did see Nate Bargatze's skit the other day about he's like George Washington or something, and he's talking about, we're not using the metrics. It's hilarious. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in a very long time. But nostalgia being what it is, SNL celebrating their 50th anniversary, I took a crack at my 5 top SNL sports skits. I have put Bill Schwartzky's Superfans in a tier of their own because it was recurring. There are a bunch of them, and they were all awesome, and I got to make room for others. So they Professor Emeritus, I don't know what to call it, but I don't include them in this because they're on a different level, and it was more of a recurring skit on SNL. The list that I had was Jesus visiting Tim Tebow and the Denver Broncos, sports announcer, where Chance the Rapper played a basketball sideline reporter that got thrust into the Rangers broadcast. Let's do that hockey. Number 3, Ray Romano sang alongside Stuart Scott, or Tim Meadows playing Stuart Scott on SportsCenter, Sweet Sassy Molassie. Number 2, Harry Carey hosting a show about space and asking Jeff Goldblum whether he would eat the moon if it were made of ribs. And number 1, Peyton Manning throwing the football very hard at children for United Way was number 1. Take your list, your favorites. Albert says, love the list. Wants to add Kevin Nealon and Dana Carvey as Hans and Franz were really good too. We want to pump you up. That's a good one. It's a good one too. And adds now let's do hockey. One that would have been honorable mention, the outside the lines where she's Suki on Gilmore Girls. She was in Ghostbusters. Can't think of her name off the top of my head. She was in Bridesmaids, hilarious, and I'm forgetting her name. But anyway, she is a college basketball coach. And this was like when all the Rutgers stuff came out about the way the coach was treating the players. And they did an faux outside the lines where she's like making them shoot free throws on roller skates and throwing bricks at them and tasing them in their classroom. That one just missed the cut. That was pretty. Melissa McCartney, is that her name? She's hilarious in everything she's in. Somebody will help me. But that's another Good one, too. Take yours, 719-247-1313. Coming up next, since we're on the path or on a little kick here of talking about consequence of games this weekend, how about for CU? Why they could be going from the best win of the Coach Prime era to their biggest game of the Coach Prime era. Melissa McCarthy. Googled it, figured it out. Melissa McCarthy was the host, and she played a college basketball coach who was abusive to her players on Saturday Night Live. If you're just tuning in, you're like, what the hell is Ryan talking about? We're talking about favorite SNL sports sketches. They celebrate their 50th anniversary this week, and we've just been strolling down memory lane, right? It's Friday. Why not? It's Melissa McCarthy, who I was thinking of. That one's hilarious. If we opened it up to any SNL sketch, Next Door earlier today, Chris Austin, afternoon host on 98.1 KKFM, he was playing one of my favorite ones where Dan Aykroyd is he's the CEO of the toy company, Bag of Glass. And the doll with the switchblade in it, like that was one of my that wouldn't have been my favorite, but that when I heard it, I'm like, that's one of my favorite SNL sketches. All the digital shorts that I'm on a boat would probably be my favorite digital short that Andy Samberg and the Lonely Island guys did. I'd have to drill down into that a little bit more. Just want to stick with sports for now, but we can open it up, right? Yeah. Favorite SNL sports sketch, 719-247-1313. UCF, I think, was the biggest win of Deion Sanders' time in Boulder. I think it was the first time where they won a game they weren't supposed to win since TCU. And really, you look at the TCU game and say, what the heck did we know? Right? All the transfers and everything. We don't have any idea. Right? And we found that out this year. You know, we have this system where we rank teams going into the preseason. Half the roster is turned over because of the transfer portal, and it's like, oh, still predict how good they're going to be. Like, I get it. Like, I'm not against the conversation. I'm just saying, more so now than ever, take the preseason rankings with a grain of salt because nobody knows. Nobody. But after a few weeks, you get to know teams. You settle in. You get expectations. So going into Orlando, and I know it doesn't look quite as good after Florida kind of smoked them too. But I still think that holds up as right now Deion Sanders' best win. And part of the reason why it was the main reason I thought it was CU's best win under Deion Sanders, if you recall, is because of how for the first time I saw the Colorado Buffaloes be the better coach team, to handle situations well, to maximize that middle eight. All these to be calling run and pass plays at appropriate times. I thought there was a maturation from Deion Sanders in that regard. And then you add on top of it, of course, this was a team that they were double-digit under 2 touchdown underdogs against, the number 1 rushing team all in the country, all of this other stuff. It was their best win. But a lot of other people seized on that idea too. And earlier I talked about the Broncos, and I'll reiterate this at the top of the hour about dealing with success. Buffs are going to be a trendy pick to beat K-State tomorrow. I just heard somebody on the Jim Rome show earlier today saying if the Buffaloes beat Kansas State, we'll be able to say that Deion Sanders has turned around the CU program. There's a lot riding on this game. So I think given the stakes and look, CU is in this. BYU, Iowa State, you can't do anything about those two teams. And in some ways, you like that you don't have those two teams because those are the only two teams in the Big 12 that look like they got their you-know-what together. Everybody else has been a mess at one point or another. Inconsistent, messy, injuries. Now Cam Rising supposedly is playing tonight. So what does Utah look like? The Buffs have a chance at this. But I don't think they have a chance at this if they lose to Kansas State. Which is not necessarily bad. I'm talking about winning the Big 12. I'm talking about that goal. I don't think they can afford to lose to Kansas State if that's what their plans are. But if they lose to Kansas State, bowl eligibility is still there. They could still win a few of these games from here on out. But I think there are some people that are peaking, and I did this too. I looked at the Big 12 since CU was on the bye and I didn't have to worry about who CU is playing. I'm like, gosh, this conference is all over the place. Oklahoma State, we thought was going to be really good. They're not. Kansas, we thought was going to be good. They're not. It's BYU and Iowa State. Those are the two best teams in the conference. CU doesn't have either one on their schedule. If the win against UCF was the best win of Deion Sanders' career, it has begat, if you will, or led to the game against Kansas State being the biggest of his career at Boulder. Seven 24/7 1313. Take your thoughts on the Buffs' chances tomorrow. I like the SNL, getting back to SNL sketches. From the 719, not sure it counts, but the John Tesh NBA theme with his brother is hilarious. Sudeikis is Tesh. I think Vince Vaughn was hosting. He was, and it's I Think You Should Leave guy. God, why am I so bad with names today? The I Think You Should Leave guy is John Tesh's brother. Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it. Yeah. Yes. That does count, and that is a terrific skit. I didn't have Netflix until a few days ago because I want to watch the Vince McMahon documentary, but I also watched the next season of I Think You Should Leave, and it is so freaking funny. And I basically saw all of it on social media because that's one of the most viral shows, everything that he does. But yes, anyway, Tesh, basketball, gimme the ball. I'm going to dunk it. Yeah. Thank you for singing it. Nobody has ever thanked me for singing anything. But yeah, in case you forgot the lyrics, those were the lyrics. Basketball. Gimme the ball. Anyway. Steve G on the Broncos. This game is a big step up for the Broncos. Leave the news clippings home. Just everybody play their butts off. That would be wise. I would agree with that. Speaking of playing their butts off, you know who's playing their butts off right now? The Broncos secondary. And Riley Moss is starting to kind of garner folk hero status within the Broncos fan base. And there's been some discussion about nicknames for that duo. Pat Surtain was asked about it.
I've been hearing a lot of comments. I don't know, like Pulp Fiction, I don't know, something like that. But I mean, I think I should leave that up to the fans and the fan base to really decide on that. So I'm interested to see what they have to say.
I have not seen the Pulp Fiction one, but obviously he's Samuel L. Jackson and Riley Moss is John Travolta. If you're going to weigh in on this, please be careful. That's all I'm saying. Just be careful. It's a different time. People's sensibilities are a little bit different. Yeah. But I would say that we should really be thinking about, or you should, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but you should actually think of a name of a trio. Let's not forget Jaquan McMillan here. What that trio is doing is helping the Broncos defense be as good as they are. You know what just popped into my head when I was thinking about the trio? Okay, so you could do a movie poster, and it's from Lethal Weapon 3. I remember the poster is Danny Glover, it's Mel Gibson, and then Joe Pesci's like trying to push his way in between their shoulders. Like that should be that. I don't know what the name of that trio is, but everyone's been photoshopping Surtain and Moss on Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes from White Men Can't Jump. Somebody needs to do this for Lethal. I forget which Lethal Weapon. I think it's 3. Again, it's Danny Glover, it's Mel Gibson, and then Joe Pesci is trying to, almost like he's trying to get in the picture. I have to look that up. That could be Pat Surtain, Riley Moss, and Jaquan McMillan, because people aren't talking enough about what McMillan has been doing as the third corner, as that slot corner. It's all 3 of them. Obviously, Surtain, most importantly. And probably Moss second. But if any fan base should recognize the importance of that slot corner position, shouldn't it be the fan base that watched Chris Harris basically own that position and be the best that we have seen play that position? So don't forget McMillan in all of this. It's going to be a little bit different on Sunday, though. I don't think Justin Herbert's going to be quite as cavalier with the football as Gardner Minshew. I don't think Jim Harbaugh is going to dial up a lot. I've been so long in the NFL with just John Harbaugh, called Jim John. I don't know how much they're going to throw it downfield and how that trio will be able to sustain the momentum they have built up over the last few weeks. think it's going to be up to the front seven on Sunday defensively, more so than the secondary. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we'll hit the three stories that are driving the show. Dave Toller a little bit later joining me from Vegas, Air Force Hockey. What did they figure out after Friday's 8-1 shellacking at the hands of Arizona State to then just turn around and beat the 20th ranked team in the country? And can they use some of that against Minnesota tonight? It's all coming up on Drive Time Sports. Well, hello there. Welcome in. Drive Time Sports. I'm Ryan. My friend Dave going to be dropping by here in the next segment. Dave Toller, that is. Talking Air Force hockey. I'd love to talk to you about anything sports related or even pseudo sports related, like your favorite SNL sports sketch, because SNL is celebrating its 50th anniversary. 719-247-1313. I don't usually do a good enough job with this, so allow me to do that. Jim won the tickets to see the Switchbacks take on San Antonio tomorrow night. I know some of you very much would like to win the tickets that I give away, and you're waiting, and you're like, I don't think I won, but Ryan never said I need to do better at that, and I will. Starting with Jim. So congratulations to Jim winning the tickets to see the Switchbacks take on San Antonio tomorrow night. Now, let's get to the three stories that are driving the show, shall we? All right, let's start with the team that is all the rage right now in the state of Colorado. Here is Sean Payton.
Look, hopefully we're bringing in the right type of players that have that intellect, that confidence, and yet, look, there's a fine line between a groove and a rut, and we can't ever forget that.
The only man in the state of Colorado that's pauses are more pregnant than mine are Sean Payton. But that pregnant pause was him contemplating the very same thing that I have been contemplating. How does this team do with prosperity? How does it do with success? Because they've had so little of it. They have not been talked about as a legitimate playoff candidate, as one of the best stories in the league, as this, as that. All the things that's being, as having a defensive player of the year, having maybe the best rookie quarterback not named Jaden Daniels. They haven't been talked about this way for a very long time. The feeling around them has not been like this for a very long time. How do they handle that? It's a different feeling. The Broncos could be Tampa Bay of a few weeks ago when Denver went in there and kind of smacked them around a little bit and said, you're not as good as you think you are. Chargers can do that same thing. If this team is riding high, if this team feels like this is the pinnacle, and because of their defense, because of the way Bo Nix is playing and the way Sean Payton is coaching, that they'll just take this Chargers team, dispatch them like they did the Raiders, and move on to try and get their head coach a win against his former team, they will be sadly mistaken, because the fact of the matter is the Chargers are still better than the Denver Broncos. They're a better team. They have a better quarterback. Better weapons. Star defensive players that the Broncos don't have. Broncos need to play at their absolute best. I told you on Monday, there are only 3 teams on the Broncos schedule that I can say unequivocally the Denver Broncos are better than. That's it. 3. Chargers aren't one of them. Broncos can't get fat and happy. Because that rut, think about it. You lose this game, short turnaround to go to New Orleans. Yeah, sure, you get the respite of being able to play Carolina, and then boom, boom, at Baltimore, at Kansas City. It can get ugly real quick for this team. That rut, they can find themselves in that rut real quick. Sunday's a big game for them for a lot of different reasons. How they handle prosperity, maybe at the top of that list. Here's a team just getting started with their season. Jed Bednar, story number 2.
Well, it's not good enough. I didn't like our game wasn't good enough. You know, like you can't spend 3 weeks talking about specific things that you know you have to improve on and then go give up those chances.
That was the Avs head coach after, suffice to say, a kind of garbage introduction to the season, if I'm being honest. Avs kind of got boat raced by, I don't want to say boat race, but they got handled. Like, there was very few points in that hockey game where you thought that the Avs are going to win. Every time they had a chance to make something happen, Vegas would smack them back down. Did the guys in front of Alexander Georgiev play good enough? No. But part of a goaltender's job is once in a while, at the very least, to bail his teammates out. You know, they got to skate all the way to the other end, and they're trying to score a goal, and then they got to get back defensively, and they got to go up and down the ice all game long. You're sitting in the crease. There's an expectation that once in a while you can bail out the guys in front of you, and not once did Alexander Georgiev do that against Vegas. And it is very on brand for Alexander Georgiev based on what we saw through 82 games or however 60 whatever he played last year. And it is the most bizarre thing. This guy looked like he did last night, pretty much all of last season. Then the playoffs rolled around and he wasn't even the same guy. He was arguably the best goaltender this side of Sunrise, Florida. And then here comes the regular season, back into a pumpkin. Avs have got to find some way to put the pressure on Alexander Georgiev, because maybe that's what turns him into a diamond. Maybe it's pressure. No pressure with a mess behind him. Nobody's going to replace Alexander Georgiev last year. He's playing every single game. Insert Capo Kakkonen. Not to be confused with just Capo Kakko or Kakko Capo.
One of the main guys on the Rangers, don't know how to say his name.
Just reminded me of that. Capo Kakkonen is a member of the Avs as they picked him up off of waivers. He was playing for Winnipeg, and now he's not. Last year, he spent most of his year with San Jose, and his numbers aren't great, although his save percentage last year was better than Georgiev's. Maybe this is the next attempt by the Avs to say, you know what? Let's bring in another guy, a veteran guy. See if that puts pressure on Alexander Georgiev. Because this dude just needs, like, the season to be on the line. And then he's great. Wednesday night, not so much. So the Avs have 3 goaltenders now, as that's rare. But the Broncos have 3 quarterbacks. So, you know, it's not that crazy. But they'll open up the home portion of their schedule tomorrow night against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Back to the NFL for story number 3. Mike Tomlin saying that Russell Wilson is healthy, but that he will, quote, probably be Justin Fields' backup against the Raiders on Sunday. You know how I feel about this. You know that I think that Justin Fields should remain the starter no matter how healthy Russell Wilson is. It would be a colossal mistake and basically throwing away the season by putting Russell Wilson into the starting quarterback role because he will not survive what the Steelers have in the back half of the schedule. They must continue to play Justin Fields. You know how I feel about this situation, but I am reading the tea leaves and I'm listening to Mike Tomlin and I'm saying, Justin Fields, you better look like Bo Nix did against the Raiders. Talk about putting pressure on someone. I think that's what Tomlin's doing. I really believe deep down today, because 2 days ago I felt differently, but today I feel deep down Mike Tomlin does not want to go to Russell Wilson. I don't think that he does, but he will if he has to. This is a warning shot to Justin Fields. Russ is healthy. We'll go to him if you don't perform. You just saw a week ago Bo Nix be able to put up some numbers against the Raiders. Justin Fields should do the same, just to be sure, just to be safe. If he does, if the Steelers win, then it gets really uncomfortable in Pittsburgh because now it's like, well, Russell Wilson can play. Need to have Justin Fields to have a good game. And not just because he's the starting quarterback of my fantasy team. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. Coming up tonight, Air Force in Vegas for the Icebreaker Tournament. They will play no matter what. Two very good college hockey teams. We don't know which team they will play tomorrow. That has yet to be decided, but we know who they play tonight. They play the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Ever heard of them? They're good. What does Air Force need to be good in to pull off another big win here early on in the season? Dave Toller, radio analyst for the Air Force hockey team, joins me next on Extra Sports 1300. Tonight is hockey night as Air Force is out in Vegas taking part in the prestigious Icebreaker tournament. Tomorrow, we don't know who they're going to play, but we know who they're playing tonight. And that's all they need to know because they got their hands full. Minnesota on the docket, 8:30 puck drop right here on Extra Sports 1300. Joining me now to preview the weekend's festivities is one half of the outstanding broadcast team you'll hear coming up tonight at 8:30. He is Dave Toller. Tolls, how much you up out there in Vegas?
This is a business trip, Ryan. I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right. That works. So let me backtrack a little bit because Friday wasn't great, right? And then Saturday comes around and Frank Serratori's calling it one of the best wins he's ever had. What did they figure out game 1 to game 2 against Arizona State?
I think number one is we didn't give up 3 shorthanded goals. That's the biggest thing. But I mean, everything that could have gone wrong Friday night did. And Arizona State is extremely talented and they're fast. They've got great skill. And, you know, we played right into that by turning pucks over in bad areas. And every time we did, they capitalized, you know. And I mean, I didn't think we played that poorly on Friday, but we just made some horrific mistakes that every one of them ended up right in the back of our net. And then, you know, we come out on Saturday night, made a few changes to the lineup. I don't think that really had any effect. We still played a good, sound game, but we didn't make those turnovers that killed us. And I think that just, you know, showed the guys, showed everybody that, hey, if we play just a good, solid game and take care of the puck, good things will happen for us.
Clayton Constantino getting some honors from the conference this past weekend. You know, when you lose the goal scoring that Air Force did, there's no bad place that it can come from, right? Would you look at Clayton as one of those players that almost must produce more in terms of scoring goals?
Yeah, and he's certainly a guy that can. I think the biggest thing for him is he's such an unselfish player. He's always a guy that, you know, is looking for the pass, looking to set somebody else up rather than taking the shot. And that was one thing that, you know, coming into this year was, hey, he's going to have to shoot more pucks. And you can still help guys out by getting pucks to the net, you know, saves turn into rebounds, turn into chances for other guys. And, you know, last weekend, you know, he scores 3 goals, scored 2 of them in that win on Saturday night, including that overtime game winner. And, you know, I think he's a guy that certainly can give us a lot more scoring when he does. I think he knows he needs to this year.
Dave Toller, my guest, joining me from Las Vegas tonight, Air Force and Minnesota. Oh, what kind of a first impression did you come away with when it comes to the freshmen on Friday? The whole fourth line was freshmen. How do you think they introduce themselves, or college hockey introduced itself to them, I suppose?
Yeah, I think they all did fine. We worked in a couple of different forward lines both nights, so a lot of those guys got to play their first college game. I think, you know, on the forward side, those guys were all fine. I think on the defensive side, though, there are 2 guys that can really play. That's Bo Janzik and Ren Morquay. And they were in both nights. They're 2 of our top 5 defensemen, and they stepped right in. And, you know, sometimes the speed of the game can be a little too much for guys, but it certainly wasn't for those guys. I think we found 2 really good young defensemen in Janzik and Morquay.
And Janzik playing with Chris Hedden. So given what Chris Hedden's been able to do, if those 2 stay together, might be something quite special for Air Force on that blue line. As far as tonight goes, this is a big deal, obviously, for the program to be invited, but using your words from earlier, this is a business trip, and they're in the business of getting wins. So let's start with Minnesota, and then I'll ask you the hypothetical of tomorrow. But as far as Minnesota, what's the scout on this team, and what does Air Force need to do in order to at least win tonight?
Well, I think when we play these teams, Ryan, our goal, our mission is to, you know, try to obviously limit their chances, but try to keep things out to the perimeter. And when we played, last year was Michigan State, and we played Michigan and some really good teams. If we can keep it out there, we know they're going to have the puck a lot just because of their skill. They're going to get some shots on goal, but if we can limit their quality chances, and I think that, coming off of last weekend, I think the guys saw that, hey, even against an Arizona State, if we play well and don't give them any great chances, we can do pretty well. I think that's going to be the same story tonight. But man, this Minnesota team is outstanding. They've got 16 NHL draft choices on their team. 4 of those guys are first round picks, so they are loaded with talent. But sometimes you get these teams early in the season and they haven't really come together. They've got a great collection of young talent, but if we can play our game, play a sound game, we'll be right in there, I think.
These early season things, I wonder almost we saw Guy Blessing get removed on Friday in the third, and I don't know that was specifically for, hey, let's see what we have behind him. But early on in the season, is there any thought that maybe Air Force would not go Guy Blessing both nights, or is your expectation that it will be him in goal for both?
Yeah, I think we'll see him in goal for both games, and that's always been how Frank works his goaltenders. We get one guy, and then we ride that horse all season. And there's some coaches, they just have a different philosophy. They like to play one guy one night, one guy the next night, and kind of see how things shake out. But I think as long as Guy is healthy and playing good, he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, he certainly played very well on Saturday. So the Air Force will either play UMass or Omaha. Give me a tidbit on either one of those teams or both, just in case Air Force ends up playing one of those two. Well, they will play one of those two, but how about a little nugget of info for Air Force fans?
Well, yeah, they're playing each other right now, and we know we're going to get one of them. We know that we're playing the early game tomorrow, so it'll be 4:00 Pacific, 5:00 Mountain Time. As Minnesota is the host school, they'll play the night game both nights. But we'll get one of them tomorrow. Both of those teams got to the NCAA tournament last year, so they were in the top 16. Both are ranked this year as well. UMass is number 14, Omaha number 15. So we're going to get a good team with whoever we get. I know our coaches are over there now, and they're they can clip film, and they're going to get a good scout on both of those and be ready for whichever one we get. But we know whichever one it is, it's going to be a tough one tomorrow as well.
Yeah, so you go from the 20th ranked team in the country to a team with 11 NHL players on it to one of 2 ranked teams. You know this even better than I do. This is the way Air Force schedules, and who can argue with the formula? But it all starts tonight with Minnesota, 8:00 Mountain. And then, as Tolles mentioned, regardless whether it's UMass or Omaha, tomorrow's game will be at 5:00 here in the Mountain Time Zone, right here on Extra Sports 1300. Tolles, appreciate the time and the insight, and I suppose I'll talk to you and Jay in just a few hours.
Sounds great. Thanks, Ryan.
You bet. Thank you. That's Dave Toller, Air Force hockey analyst, joining me here on Drive Time Sports. This is the way they do it. They schedule a murderer's row in the non-conference. They get, quite frankly, they don't win a ton of those games, but they get a few where you go, okay. And Saturday was one of those days against Arizona State. Off of the 8-1 loss to ASU, you turn around the next night, fall behind early, and still come back to beat them. This is another one of those weekends. You get one of these two. And I'm not trying to set the expect. They're going out there to try and win both games, certainly. But I'm just looking at it from the outside. You get one of these two, either one of these two, it's another good weekend. Maybe Minnesota more so than the UMass or Omaha, but This is the way they do it. And then January rolls around. They're playing all conference. Watch Air Force go. Climb up the standings or put a stranglehold on whatever spot they may have. It's like with the goaltenders, right? This would be a place, and we saw Arizona State do it last weekend, right? They think they have two very good goaltenders. They went one night, one the next night. It's not how Air Force operates. Guy Blessing is, pardon the pun, the guy. He's going to be out there every night. And with him in between the pipes, they got a chance every night. So 8 o'clock tonight against Minnesota, tomorrow against either Omaha or UMass at 5, right here on Extra Sports 1300. 719-247-1313 is the number. Last call for your text. I got to talk a little bit about baseball because at the top of the hour, a very significant baseball game will occur in Southern California between the Padres and the Dodgers. Another busy sports weekend here locally. Just got done talking about Air Force hockey. Air Force football is in Albuquerque. You can hear that game tomorrow on 740 KVR at 5 p.m. And then, as you may have just heard, we're a little bit split here on the extra sports side. If you're looking for Air Force hockey, best place to go would be terrestrial radio, your radio dial. And the best place to get switchbacks would be extrasports1300.com and extrasports 1300 app. Soccer starts at 6, hockey starts at 5. They basically are running right on top of each other. So tomorrow afternoon or evening, hockey on terrestrial radio on your AM dial, soccer on the app and website. So, and then Air Force football over on 740 KVR, both terrestrial and streaming. And then what else we got? We got 2 games, NFL games on Sunday. We have the London game and then, of course, Sunday night football. And then before you know it, it'll be Monday Night Football. And before you know it, after that, the Broncos will be taking on New Orleans and will be in prime time. I'm going to be heading out to Trainwreck to watch that. 812 South Sierra Madre. I'll be doing the show from 3 until 6. And then the game starts shortly thereafter. Bunch of giveaways, great specials from the folks at Trainwreck. I've been out there before. You may have been out there before or after Switchbacks game. It's a good time. Good place to be. So hope to see you out there this coming Thursday at Trainwreck 812 South Sierra Madre. Padres better win tonight. The Padres better win tonight because they are never going to get over Dave Roberts painting an absolute managing of the bullpen masterpiece on them in Game 4. This is a payroll that would put many other payrolls to shame, right? The LA Dodgers. They spend and spend and spend. They have so much money. They're the new evil empire, all this kind of stuff. And they had to throw out a bullpen game in Game 4. A bullpen game. You had to mix and match. And that's not even the crazy thing. The crazy thing is the Padres could do nothing against the bullpen game. They were powerless. And Dave Roberts did an amazing job. Like, he had late inning relievers coming in earlier on in the game. He had long relievers later, won an inning, not a single run scored by the Padres. Like, that's Dave Roberts' magnum opus, what he did in Game 4. If the Padres don't win tonight, oh, man. And I don't know what happens tonight, but unless it's like a Bucky Dent type situation, Padres fans will be thinking about Game 4, not Game 5. They'll say, we lost it in Game 4 because we couldn't do anything against a team with a payroll upwards of, I don't even know, because Ohtani is like paid in Bitcoin. I'm not entirely sure what their payroll actually is. It's a lot. And they had to go a bullpen game with their season on the line, and the Padres did nothing against them. Padres better come back tonight and win. Because that is a great city that is going to be absolutely depressed. They had the Dodgers Right where they wanted him. Right where they wanted him. And they get shut out by 8 relievers. 9 relievers. How many innings are in baseball again? Eight nothing was the final, right? That's what I'm confusing. Anyway, that one's starting up here in about a little less than 30 minutes. Yankees have moved on. My Tigers are going with Skubal again. 3 times in a 5-game series, Tarek Skubal is going to pitch. And he's going to beat the Guardians again. And then he's going to pitch 4 times against the Yankees. And then he's going to pitch 4 more times against the Mets. I am making some grand assumptions. But it's like the Tigers, they were in it last night, and then Cleveland put on the squeeze. And, yeah, good on Cleveland for winning that game and staying alive. But now they got to face Skubal. Playoffs have been good. They've been chaotic. And I said I'm going to watch it for the chaos. And it has been chaotic. But Yankees have gotten through. So that's good news for baseball. Tigers would be a better story, but I don't know that many people on this part of the country or on the East Coast are going to be like, oh, I really wanted Cleveland or I really wanted Detroit. You got the Yankees through. That was the important thing. You got the Mets. I don't know that you need the Dodgers. You don't need them. You like to see Ohtani live to find another day, but I'd also love to see the Padres go on. Because that building, Petco, was, for the last 2 games, unbelievable. Unbelievable. I think baseball's playing with house money right now. They got the Mets to go through. They got the Yankees to go through. They may have their preferences, but they're good. These baseball playoffs have been everything they could have hoped. And we'll see whether it be the Padres or the Dodgers that meet up with the new Miracle Mets coming up in the NLCS. And then tomorrow, right? Tomorrow we find out who the Yankees play. It's been good. Avs tomorrow against Columbus. That game will be immediately following Air Force Hockey. We'll have to join it a little bit late. But the majority of the Avs home opener against Columbus can be heard right here on Extra Sports 1300. And then we're not airing these games, but they're also of local significance. You got CU, Kansas State. I'm taking the Buffs plus the points. I am. I think that's going to be a great game. And if Dion and company pull this off, oh boy, what is the conversation going to be like on Monday? I don't think it will change that drastically for the Denver Broncos if they beat LA. But I think it could change quite a bit locally if they don't beat the Chargers. Chargers favored by 3 on the road. On the road. But you know why that is. A, they're better. B, they're coming off of a bye week. One of the most banged up teams in the NFL is slightly healthier. It's good for them. But that'll be interesting. Interesting to see. Again, Denver 3-point dogs. You got, I think the money, the handle is just about split, I think. I think it's like 55-45 people on LA. But no matter which way you decide to bet Sunday's game, I would suggest you do it on the Circa Sports Colorado app, because that's what I use for my sports bets. They have created a better experience for the bettor. They're not into like those free promotion stuff, because their lines are their promos. And if you're someone who's going to stick around, who wants to find an app that they're going to be using for their serious bets, this is where to go. Strive to be a minus 110 split. Keep as little money as possible on large market bets like golf tournaments, futures, and they don't limit players based on their winnings. That's not the case on other sports betting apps, just so you know. And if you ever have an issue, just know you'll speak to real human beings, the same human beings that are behind Circa Resort and Casino in Vegas are behind this app, and they stand by it. So if you have a problem, you'll talk to them, and they'll help you out. It's better for the better at Circa Sports Colorado. Download the app today. Must be 21 years or older and present in Colorado to bet. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. What did I miss? Nothing. I think that's it. I think we got every piece of information that we needed to go over. I am curious to see how Spencer Rattler does against the Bucs. That Thursday night game, as if it wasn't interesting enough, just got even more interesting with Spencer Rattler being thrown into the mix. But again, coming up tonight, Air Force hockey against Minnesota. Tomorrow, Switchbacks against San Antonio. Hope to talk to you then. If not, we'll reconvene on Monday. We'll go through this very busy weekend. Will things get better for the Avs? Will the Broncos keep it rolling? What new heights have the Buffs reached? Lot of stuff to discuss on Monday, and I'm looking forward to it. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk then.
About the IRS, they tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax relief